can't remember how many years ago, Graz, but let's say 3 years in London, John Mason from Sideway introduced us in a restaurant, your previous career. And very quickly, we found out we had something going. There was lots of good energy, and we wanted to talk about people and how you get the best out of people, the performance bit. And then we've been trying over a number of creation, also my own fault, that we haven't been able to sit down and talk about how do we actually get more out of people and, what actually separates the maverick leaders, if I can call them that, from the one that is thriving to the ones that is, just surviving or struggling through, and how do we actually build a high performance teams. And that's really what I want to talk about today. So I'm so excited to have you on the show, Graz, finally. And I can't wait to dive into today's conversation.
Same, Michael. Same. Absolutely. It's been a journey since we met the first time. But here we are, welcoming each other, you from your home, me from my little space, my little office. And what a fascinating topic to explore. Because as always, we might not have the answer, but the biggest thing is to stop and allow ourselves, give ourselves the time to stop and explore, have a confrontation, have a chat, and get a bit in each other's heads, because that's when transformation happens and new things get created.
Yeah, and what always works well, Graz, is that just to set the scene and the context and what you do, it's great to hear just the story from, your journey you've been on to now running your own business. So like the quick rundown of that and actually what you're doing now, which is very interesting. It is a portfolio of things.
Yeah, it's been a journey. I try to make it as concise as possible, because it's been quite a journey. What I do actually now, I do look after people development, and I do performance mental coaching. This has been a journey. It's the moment where I am now in my life. I come from working hospitality. I started back in 2009 when I came to London, working restaurants, and I've always been a people person. And for me, working within people, it was just brilliant in a new setting, new environment, new city, new language, new. And I didn't choose that career. I didn't choose hospitality. It's not something that I say, like, I want to become this. It's been a lot like, I always say, hospitality chose me, and it took me in a journey to work pretty much in every position in a restaurant as well, a little bit in operations. And then I, with my experiences and with my studies, I took on the role as a head of people. I was looking after the people development for a different job title for different position, but especially focusing on the managers and the leaders of the business, and do that through training and coaching. In the meantime, I love football. Right? I love sports in general, and football is the sport that I play since I was 7. Every year, every season, in out. I wasn't the greatest one. I was the one that was a fighter, a runner. I was putting everything in there. I never make it to pro level. I mean, say that life takes you in journeys that you don't expect, and I had to stop playing, and I say I want to see being a football. And it's when I start coaching, when I start getting involved into that. And within that, now I coach football for 10 years. And I also coach football in our professional academy here in London. And when it comes to the performance mental coaching, where it really comes from, when you get to your education and your understanding of how to coach and how to educate, you go through. Well, when you look at athletes, for instance, and then we can refer to the leaders. When you look at athletes, you look at the technical part, technical side, physical side, tactical side, and as well the psychological and the social sides. And for me, the psychological and the social side of the athlete's development was like what caught my attention, as in like, okay, I saw it like a glue for everything to put together for our athletes. It's like you can be the most talented player, the most intelligent player, but really, if you don't have it here, wait, I touch it here, but really, I don't like to separate mind and body because it's all connected, right? But I think that's the driven come from the mind, and the driven comes from knowing yourself, knowing how to manage yourself, and at the same time, as a football is a team sport, knowing how to be within people. So I start specializing myself into this area, so the psychological and the social aspects of the athlete's development, to my studies, but mainly my experiences. And in the meantime, I was still working hospitality. I was like, okay, what I'm doing here with the athletes, because also I work with professional athletes, both team sport, individual sport, as well as a lot with adolescents, the next generation. And wow, that's a fascinating work. Because anyway, let's go back in there. So, working with athletes, I saw, okay, I can use these tools with the leaders, and there are different. Well, it's not just the tools; it's the mindset, it's the your regulation, it's your setting goals, having a mission, having something to spending. What I see the athletes do a lot, that's leader also. I want to, because I see myself a bit like a bridge. Now, this is probably in my head, but it's like, what can I bring from sports to hospitality, and from hospitality into sports? And for me, a lot is the intention that the athletes uh, has with the time, with the energy, with the focus that the leader can really try with. Now, it's been a bigger of a journey. Where I am now, I came to build my own business, and Inside Up. Well, just the name, it's for me, the Inside Up for me means growing from within. So the ability to grow through what you do, but looking inwards rather than focusing on what's outside. So yeah, this is pretty much my journey the past 18 years. And that's where I am now at the moment, working with athletes, teams, leaders, and coaching a professional academy.
Yeah, because I think what's really interesting is that you have that combination of the professional athlete world, football, a very competitive place where there's a lot of people that wants to be the next one, yeah, the next, Ronaldo, or the next Messi, or the next Peter Schmeichel would have been in my world. Yeah, that's who I wanted to be when I played football. Yeah, Peter was my big, and still is. I think he's done a lot of good for football and has
Of course.
a lot of the right qualities of a strong leader. He might come on the podcast one day. That's one of the things I'm working on. That is on my vision board. It will happen, yeah. But what I think is really interesting, because you're very humble, Graz, is that, can you just say some of the football clubs you're working with, and then maybe also some of the hospitality businesses you touch, and the leadership group you touch, because I think that's really important for the next part of the conversation we're going to have.
When you're talking about the club itself and the company I work with.
Yeah, the football club and the companies you're involved with now.
Yes, football mainly Crystal Palace. It's Crystal Palace, the club that I work for, and also work with athletes that they're part of different sports, whether it's tennis or rugby, in Italy, in Spain, and adolescents they play in academy like Roma, AS Roma Football Club, and also for some minor league here in London. When it comes to, as well as of course with Lazio Taekwondo club, I work a lot with the athletes. And when it comes to businesses, I keep working with ARO QD, the company that I used to work as well full time, and I'm still consulting and at the same time training the manager, and I'm doing other collaboration. There's a DRG company up in Glasgow. I've done job work with both the GM as well with the head chef, and also I've worked with Leo at Chelsea Football Club, who was the head of hospitality at Chelsea, and now he's at Wimbledon. Another brilliant leader. Those are the one that I got at the moment, and yeah, along others, those are the main one that I think it's worth highlighting. That's a good question. I never stop thinking, okay, how many I work?
Yeah,
It's
yeah. And I think
Yeah.
that's really interesting because you take, because it's very different clubs, very different things, and you need to get the best out. And your time, you only have the time with the players or the athletes in a certain time, and you really need to move them fast. And I think what I was thinking about up to this was like hospitality financially, we are in the knees right now. Yeah, it's struggling margins. There's one challenge after the other, next one event, and like the mental toughness, you know, it's really important, yeah, because I think it's never been harder both for an owner operator, but also for the leaders in the business because they get pushed from above and below, and they need to find capacity to operate within that. And that means, making decisions, having the right energy, not shout, not feeling under pressure. And it's hard enough in life itself, yeah, to manage that. So why is it so important? Why is the matter so much? You talk a lot about, but it's really important now more than ever in where hospitality is, that actually being able to be good to mental toughness or performance is really, really important.
Yeah, I don't think there's a straightforward. So one thing that I can think of is like there's a quote that I always like. They says, "Impact the village." A best leader is able to impact the village. What I mean by that, if I see, for instance, in hospitality, what impact the village is how can you impact your business, how can you impact your people. People as in like who are you directly responsible for, but also who is on top of you, and at the same time how you impact yourself. Now, uh, I always believe you cannot pour anything from an empty cup, and the importance of managing yourself in a way, knowing to start with yourself and managing yourself. It's in anything you do, it's crucial because you say something that's not feeling under pressure. I think that feeling under pressure is a matter of perception because feeling under pressure is actually a good feeling. I don't know anyone that it goes into a competition or it goes into a shift or goes into something important, doesn't feel the pressure. Because if you don't feel the pressure, it means probably that's not important to you. So feeling the pressure is good, and learning how to reframe or restructure a bit what pressure means to you. It's a bit like I love to mention quotes from Maya that I saw the other day. Maya is a exceptional mental coach, mental fitness trainer, and she says that the biggest shift has to be from one of the biggest shifts has to be from I have to I get to. So it's like it's not I have to do this because of XYZ. Focus mainly on what you get to do in the occasion. What is the benefit? What can you learn? What can you get out of the situation? So importance to work on the mind, really, it's the importance of working yourself first and foremost, and give it as a priority, having it as a priority. Now, uh, priority shape everything you do because you shape what you do, but before what you plan, and also how you get to reflect to what it gives you a mission, it gives you a direction. Um, is an investment, as you like when it comes to performance mental coaching, is an investment rather than a cost. This is what I keep telling myself, and I know probably everybody say that, but it really is because you are. If I put myself as a business owner, right? Well, obviously it depends if you can afford it, if you can afford it. There are situations you can afford it, and I get it, and uh, there's not much to do with that. But really, it's are you pri- prioritizing your energy, your money, and of course your focus. And especially in hospitality, people, teams, it's not me saying it, it's crucial. We know it's a people's business. And as a people's business, if you don't have somebody that is able to lead himself first, how would you expect him to lead the team? And another thing is most of not most of them, but probably most is not the right word that I'm looking for, but uh, some of the leaders, especially the youngest one, they might not have, well, they might be their first experience. They might have never been taught what means leading others and giving the space. Because at the end of the day, what you do with when you do a coaching session is you stop, right? And you stop, you take the time for yourself, and you create the space. And within the space, it's um, that's where the magic happens. And you can take this as, if you want to take a more broader level, right? Think about the biggest things that happen in the world that forced people to stop, to pause. For instance, talking about COVID a few years ago, what happened by that? That's most of the people were forced to stop. But lots of people that I know, they say that was a brilliant time because I had the opportunity to stop, reflect what I was doing, and plan and shape a direction. So that is something that we don't need to wait for the world or for something that big to stop us. We can take that time to stop and do a check within ourselves. And what the athletes do really, 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 really well, they have a mission. They are they're intentional with how they spend their time, and they constantly check on themselves. Because if you want to be on top of that, you constantly have to do it. So probably to go back to your question, it's why is important? Because it gives the space and the framework and the support for them to stop and reflect on themselves, knowing themselves, because that is the biggest thing, knowing yourself. What I always say, my mission is to this is fun. I explain what is fun because it comes from a cartoon, but for me it's so inspirational from a movie. And it says, my job is not to help you becoming someone, it's to help you becoming you. And if I can help you becoming you while you do what you love, that is a bingo. That is when people say we don't have time. Okay, just because you don't have time, let's use the time that you have to, at work, for instance, to learn something that you can take also outside your private life, which is not a work. So it's a bit like taking the time for yourself, and the performance is the vehicle, is the excuse, is the anchor that we can use for working on yourself. So yeah, creating the space is important to, I think, more than ever, in a world that keep going, things do, notification and everything happening, taking the time to stop and work on yourself. I don't know, but if I probably haven't done the maths, but if I had to think about percentage, probably it's 5% of your time investing on yourself. If you put it into that, is my brother once told me I wasn't good at, after I stopped playing, to do physical activity, go to the gym. And my brother is a personal trainer. He said, Graz, you know that you basically should go to the gym 4 hours per day. And if you break it down, that is less than 5% of your time on the week. Can you not invest 5 time for you? So it's like, if you don't have time, my question is, what you don't have time for? And the risk, and I know I'm conscious, I said the risk is that you don't have time for yourself. So that's why it's important for me.
And you have to make that time. And it's very interesting. You talked about the athletes world before, and I was listening to this interview the other day, and I actually shared in my newsletter yesterday, Jim Collins, the author of the book Good to Great. And he's now done a study over 10 years on some of them. He said, I could have done on anyone, but I needed data. So he needed to look at people who are famous, and it was for everything from military people and so on. And it was very interesting. He said, when you look at the people from sports, elite sport, that has done incredible results, they were very aware that they were lacking time, because your career in sports, if you are a player, it's running out when you're approaching your mid-30s in whatever sport you're doing. If it's cycling, football, basketball, whatever it is, there's a limitation to how you can perform at the highest level. So therefore, stopping and reflecting on what works and doesn't work is extremely important. Mental toughness, because they also have down times where a whole season where things doesn't work, or maybe 2 seasons, and you see sometimes football player that moves around between clubs and then suddenly they land somewhere. And I think Salah in Liverpool is the greatest example. He lands in Liverpool, become one of the best players in the world. But he's been in Chelsea, he's been other places, didn't work. But he had to reflect all the time of what's working, not working, keep on moving. And I think that's a really interesting connection with what you can learn from elite sports people as well. That actually they take breaks, to make better decisions. what else can you take from them when you think about elite sports people? Because, some of them succeed. You have your Michael Jordans, your all the crazy, the Messis, and but it's not everybody end on that level. But actually, often what you see was thinking quite interesting if you follow football players after their career. I think that says a lot because the really mental strong one have a plan for afterwards. Yeah. But I don't know if there's other things you will see that when you see these elite players, because not all of them become household names. Yeah. There's a lot of football players that doesn't get known really from just playing Premier League for 10 years and then you're gone. Yeah.
There is a saying that, this is another saying that says that everybody wants to be a football player, but who really needs it and who really has what it takes? Because I can tell you that if I think about the life of a football player that looks like an Excel spreadsheet, Michael, they look like they wake up at 6 o'clock, they go pre-training, then they go breakfast, because they're not just athletes. Because we forget they're not just athletes. They are parents. They got friends. So they got their wife, they got the children, they got the friends they got another life. So when you look at really what it takes, it's a heart. Again, being an elite athlete is hard. Being an elite leader, it's hard. It takes work, and really, it's the work what separates. For me, when we said before, what separates surviving leaders for thriving ones, it's not just the amount of work, but the amount of quality and intentional work that is put through, and they have support. And elite athletes, they have any sort of support, not just psychological, nutritional, physical, health, like lifestyle, well-being. They got so much support around. So when we see hospitality as an elite sector, a leader, you managing multi-millions business. That's elite, and it's crazy. You think that a manager or a leader it doesn't have access to support from outside. But even sometimes support can be just like the fact of somebody that comes from outside that helps you to put your thought together, or somebody that is listening. So you're talking, is really listening to what you're saying, and it just give you the space. Do you know how many times, Michael, I go that they tell me, the only things that I needed to take my time for myself and somebody to listen to me. Just the power of listening. And why I'm saying this is what the thriving leaders are connected to, what we said at the beginning. It's not just listening to yourself, it's also listening to your staff, because as a leader, you can't do this by yourself. So, and I know we always, on the go, we always doing, but for me, the ability of a leader, as I say, to impact the village is the biggest ability and skills is to listening. The listening skills, of course, the empathy that you put it in that, and probably now we direct more into team. I just wanted to say a little bit more into the person, into the leader itself. You asking what other skills can a leader in hospitality can learn from an athlete? There is I keep quoting here, but I think we have it there. We have to learn from the greatest, and one of the greatest is Novak Djokovic in tennis. And he says that what differentiates between biggest champions and average is the ability to get out of the high emotional zone, the ability to reconnect with what you're doing. And when it comes to feeling under pressure, when we feel under pressure, we all feel it different. Somebody might feel like their hands a bit like wet. You might find a heavy chest. You might find like a head in a vortex. But then it's like, what tools do you have to acknowledge that, reconnect with yourself? And Novak Djokovic speaks a lot about conscious breathing. And I use conscious breathing through my studies experience. Breathing for me is an exceptional tool. It's always there for us to reconnect with yourself and then refocus what this situation is for me, what I can control. So again, another important skills is the emotional regulation, the ability to regulate your emotion, not controlling, because when people say control your emotion, che control your emotion? Don't control your emotion. It's like how you manage that. You can control your response, but not what happened to you. We know this. So yes, there's another thing. The emotional regulation, I think, is another crucial skill to learn from an athlete to a leader.
Yeah, I don't know if you've seen this. It was I was listening to this Jim Collins interview, which is in the newsletter by Ryan Holiday, the Daily Stoic, and he talked a lot about really good performers. That was in music or in sports or people that has been running for president. They talked actually about Jimmy Carter, who was president of the United States, not very successful. Looking at the period he did it in, he might did it in a similar period as the world is in now, so it's very difficult to look successful. But actually the work he did afterwards and his ability to not lose control over himself when he was under that pressure is one of the reasons why he actually did so much great work afterwards. Because he was the guy that negotiated peace in the Middle East. Because he was very good at regulating his emotional state. So therefore, a guy like that, negotiating between two people or two nations or two group of people that hate each other, is exceptional at that. So his best work is actually done after presidency. But actually he was training his ability to regulate his emotional state and but he's very aware of it. And I think we all know it, like especially people that have kids. And I know it for myself. I find it extremely difficult to regulate myself when you're dealing with your family and kids, because it's a very different thing than work. The professional context is out. You're just raw into who you are yourself. And then you always find out, oh, I could do much better than that. I shouldn't have responded. I shouldn't have said that to them. But then you also have to accept you're human and actually focusing on what can I control next time? What can I do different? And I think a lot of people forget they are in control of much more than they think. So every time I feel under pressure and I do the breathing activity the Navy SEALs do, the 4 deep breaths, and hold the 4 seconds. And then I start writing things down. I just empty my head. And then I have to choose what is the next step. That is the next step. And then I move on. And then I feel in control again. But sometimes it takes an hour, sometimes it takes 3 days. Yeah. But it's okay. It depends on, because I get really scattered in my head if I can't figure out. I don't feel in control of the situation. I feel my brain is all over and things are not working and it's just irritating and one bad news after the other, because your perception is that it's bad news. Yeah. But maybe it's just how it is. It's the next obstacle you need to meet to get to where you want to go. Yeah. And I leave things as well. If I can feel, I learned that over the years, I can feel I'm not ready for that conversation, or I'm not ready to review that email or that difficult task doing that, I will leave it I'll give it some time. Yeah. And then I'll come back to it with a fresh mind and with the right energy. I'm very much perceiving things. I need to have the right energy as I have to go into them. And they talked about it in that interview as well. Like some of the most successful people also, that they were working on this all life and the success came late in life. Yeah. Which is quite interesting. Some people, yeah. Steve Kerr, played with Michael Jordan. Maybe didn't many news. Steve Kerr in the Last Dance as well. He's one of the key players for them to win the last championship. But he's actually more successful as a coach with the Warriors afterwards. And he's successful, better results than Michael Jordan have had ever in the NBA. Yeah.
It's fascinating, isn't it? But the thing is, while you were talking, the 3 things that stood in my mind. One is training, because you train yourself to get there. It's not like when you say the work is it's a training itself, and all this ability can be trained, had to be trained in order to put it into place. And then is the element of acceptance, because I think and what's your perception of being in control on something? What does it mean being in control? Because if you really strip it down to the real life, we are in control of really few things. So, but we want to be in control. This will probably be one of the biggest lessons, because when I say I got really fascinated by the psychological and the mental aspects of the athlete's development, is because I'm what I always say, we are the first product of what we do. So we always train on ourselves, and Otherwise, we don't know how to teach others. Going back to the coach now that is more successful than he was as a player, he's probably been training himself during his career and now he's able to teach others, but just because he experienced first himself. And the acceptance that we cannot be in control of everything, or we can be in control of really limited things, that level of acceptance. Ooh, that is a hard word, Michael. That was probably this last year for me, the biggest lesson of learn to live a bit in the chaos. I always been like, if you see how my book, they're all like nice and tight.
Very nice compared to. I tidied up the chaos before our interview, by the way.
And the thing is, like, being able to navigate it, be okay with when you say feeling the pressure is good. But what does it mean pressure? What are you feeling? Can you name that feeling? And yeah, it comes to the training, acceptance, and being aware that you cannot control all these things.
Yeah, and another thing you talked about it, you were going into the team bit before, and I think let's move it over to the team bit, because I think lots of times you can't do this alone. You're really depending on somebody else, so that's why it's also important to be in control of yourself, have the right energy into the room, because in principle you're running energy. Yeah, that's your job as a leader. Make sure everything has the right energy, the focus is on the right things. So what can you actually, when you want to build a high performing team, but lots of people talk about high turn or turnover in hospitality business. How can you actually, and combined with operational pressures and money and so on, how do you actually build a high performing team or a high performing culture?
Two different things, culture and team. But I think if we had to focus first, you want to focus on the culture. What culture do you want to instill before you even look into the team? But as we're talking about the team, how do you build it? Such a difficult subject, because I speak with operators, and along the challenges they go to find the right people, the people that are willing to work, they want to do the hard work, because come on, hospitality it's not easy. There's lots of pressure, time, your performance every day. An athlete might perform once a week, or some athletes perform once every 3-4 times a year. In hospitality you perform twice per day, so the pressure is there. And so now I understand is a hard job to create a team, and I'm not going into like the selection, so the recruitment, but let's assume you have clear what team would you like to have. It's a bit like football. No, I want to have my goalkeeper, my defender, my center mid, my striker, having an idea of what type of personality you would like to have. And I think there is a stage now where we have to do a lot of nurturing, and call it nurturing, call it coaching, calling a bit of showing, and more than we used to do in the past. For instance, especially in a place like here in UK, London, where I see is very different for what it was when I first came. Completely different. But generally speaking, for me, the quality as a leader is to engage and create a rapport with the individual first, as in like spending time to get to know them. Get to know them. It can be anything. It doesn't need to be job related. And if something is like, what is your why? Why are you here to start with? What would you like to learn? Because let's use this time the best for you to grow, to develop as a person, and to develop as a professional. The important thing is, for me, is you connect with the why of the person. You connect with what's in there for them. Once you create a report, then it's, if you look into more broad, for me, a team there should be trust. So there are a few elements for me. The first one should be trust. Trust is a back and forwards. So sometimes it's not like it's trusting the person is capable, and for us is to give the right resources. So trusting they can do it, and having really important a way to manage the conflicts, because conflicts will arise, especially in a team, especially if you think that, if I just thinking now in the team formation, right? You got the different stages, you got the forming, you got the storming, you got your adjusting, your norming, and then you got your adjusting. So, and performing. So what happened in that? That's now what I see, the teams are constantly in a storming phase, forming, storming, forming, storming, forming, storming. And on the storming phase, for me, there is an opportunity to, there must be, I always believe there's an opportunity to the challenges. And for me, the challenges are being in the storming now. How can we navigate the storming? How can we navigate the conflicts? When conflict arise, how we are going to address them? And then it comes to commitment. What are the goals? What are we here for? And sometimes I think sharing was the goals. Going back to numbers, when it comes to business today, I don't know, what is the forecast for the week? How much we should be doing today? How can we get that extra 10, 15 pounds to increase the average spend? It's like going in a tangible, giving tangible elements for people to understand why they doing what they're doing, and then have a clear line of responsibility, make people accountable, make them accountable for the job, the responsibility. And with that come coaching, and with then come like setting clear expectation, and with then comes how you follow up if things don't go well, but how you follow up when things go well, because most of the time things go well. Do we address it? How many times did you tell somebody, well done? Well done. You know what's the biggest thing? This is probably me, but when I'm managing a team, the biggest tool, let's say, that I got to engage with somebody, to make sure that somebody is full of confidence, is to praise his effort. And what is praise his effort? So how much do we praise the effort in hospitality? And then we focus on, again, what's the goal? So result, and probably I'd refer more into sport, but be result orientated. It's not easy, I get it. But if we look at these 5 elements, I think we got a big chance to influence a changing of behavior of our staff and so the team. But it's all stuff from us.
Yeah, and it's so interesting when you were talking about that. A book I often give to many people, especially managers, the 1 Minute Man, and talks exactly about that. You know, you should go and look for praising people, and of course you should also redirect if it's there. But the most important thing is to find something you can praise for every day as you walk around, if you're a family or whatever it is. And it's funny when you start doing that, coming back to when you feel chaos inside yourself, start praising others for something, and then suddenly your nervous system also comes down because you feel good about catching people doing something well. And then he talks about the start from that is either to have very clear goals or standards. Yeah, because standards could also be you following up on the standards. Say, oh, it sounds very, very silly. Oh, like how you cleaned the toilets the last week has been absolutely fucking brilliant. The reason why it's brilliant is because there is enough loo roll, enough hand soap. So you become very concrete on your praising, and even better if other people can hear as well, because people love to be praised. Yeah. So it's like, and then it becomes self-inflicting because then others are thinking, I want that praise as well. So I'm going to start doing that as well. Then you're starting building that momentum within the team. Another thing I was thinking about as we were preparing for this, I work a lot. This is in my native language, Danish, but you can find the Drexler performance model. And we work with that together with a guy called Mike Cohen that's also been here on the show. And it's very interesting when you look at that. This is the why, the how, the what, the when question. But often in hospitality, we go for, there's a problem or something needs to be solved. We go straight to plan. But actually, to build a high performance team, you need people to feel safe. They feel very unsafe when something is happening. Yeah, it could be, a guest is missing something on the table. But actually, if maybe you don't have time in the moment, maybe you need to solve the problem here now, but then you go back to the employee and explain them why it's important, what they should have done differently. Then they understand what's called the how question, the why. So we don't always just react and go down to the execution of the plan. We actually think this through, especially with bigger bit of project. Also people often, I know what's wrong with him. He's lazy. But is he actually lazy? Have we given him the right circumstances? Have we given him the right resource and so on? So as a leader, you should ask yourself these questions to take yourself and your people from feeling unsafe to safe. And that's what's going on again and again and again. And the better you all get to work with the Drexler performance model and you actually make that visible, this is how we think leadership in the organization, you'll see people starting doing this. And funny enough, we just work with this in a team, and we see these mid managers now taking this up in meetings. Say, yeah, but actually the problem is we're not talking about who's going to do this and what we're going to do. So let's have a conversation about that instead before we go to action plan, because that's really going to
you create a culture. That's how you creating a culture.
Yeah, and so it's called the Drexler Sippet Team Performance Model. So everybody listening should listen up to that, and then of course get your copy of the 1 Minute Manager. This talks straight into what Gras is talking about here. You have a very simple, because we also want to give people a simple tool today, and you have a very simple tool, Gras, that's called Plan, Do, Review as a leader or as a team. Can you talk a bit about what it is and how you get to use it? How do you make this a habit? Yeah, because I think that's really the key thing. Yeah.
Yes, it is the key, because it's your framework that you constantly operating with, right? And again, we are the first product of what you preach or what we do, and for me is what I use consistently most of the time, because then again, it comes an element of acceptance that it doesn't have to be perfect. So sometimes I was not following through because probably something wasn't perfect. No, what I want to talk is like the plan, do, review is a framework to help you stay on track. That's what it does for me. Where it sounds basic, right? It sounds simple, but it's so hard to follow it. And I experience this myself, and I think the hardest bit is there are the two moments when you are forced to stop and actually stop, the action to stop. I think we're living, it's not me thinking, we're living in a world that is constantly doing. If we don't do it, we're not proactive. If we're not proactive, we're not efficient, and blah 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 blah. But really, the value of stopping, as we were saying before, right? When you stop is when the magic, when something meaningful get created. Plan. What do you plan? If I put myself in as an operator point of view, I definitely plan my week. I plan my day before I start the day, before I start the week. Because you had to dedicate time. You had to schedule time for planning. You had to schedule time to stop. Otherwise, we don't stop. We are now wired for never stop. So you have to plan your time to stop first. So plan the time to plan. Then plan. When you plan, be intentional. Be intentional with what your priorities are. What are the intended outcomes that you want to get out of it? Because then you do it, and we're all good at doing it. Pretty much, we do. They do. We all good at. What I think is really challenging is the review bit. At least for me, it's something that I consciously focus and intentionally allow time for doing it. Because again, when do I review it is crucial. So planning the time to review. And what am I reviewing? I'm reviewing the plan. How I'm reviewing, because that is the only thing. So when you say, okay, let's review, it has to be as simple as possible. We don't want to spend an hour. If we have, by all means. But really, the reality of our life, you don't have all the time of the world. So I always follow the same structure when it comes to review. I use a plus Kaizen approach. Plus, it means what it went well. Kaizen is a Japanese word for even better if. And I reflect on myself, the impact that I had on people and the business and on myself. I reflect on the service. For instance, if I'm an operator, what went well, what I can improve, and I reflect on the people who was my struggle and who was struggling that needs addressed. Because by all of this, you come out with at least 3 action plan that can be your plan for next week. Again, it sounds simple, but it's not easy. And I think the biggest thing is down to the fact that we have this perception, and me included, that if we stop, we are not investing the time rightly. And but I think the other hand, that's when it comes not wanting to be perfect, it comes to now I'm going to a different world now. I'm not gonna open this other box. I was going to a different box.
Yeah, but to hold it there, because also what you say review, and I think the review thing I was talking a bit about with you before we started, and I think it's a good example. I've been extremely busy doing. I've had a lot on all areas of life and work and blah 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 blah, and I haven't reviewed properly Q1, and I said that to you. And actually, what I've learned from the review session, and now I've actually yesterday evening I put mine in. For this week, so it's going to happen this week. Now block the time in my calendar. The problem was I didn't do that. I might have had it in my calendar, but then I was just in the arena. Had to fight like the gladiator. But for me, these things is more about. It's not about what's starting. It's actually almost what do I need to stop to get where I want to be in. Depending on some people works in a decade. I work in a decade, 5 years, and then I go down to a year. And that's how I build it up. Like, what is the ultimate goal? And what do I need to do in a year to get there? And that could be something about money. It could also be something about what would I like to work with? What kind of people would I like? So I have this like kind of framework that's from the vision down to the 1 year plan to down to the quarter. And what I've learned over the last couple of years, especially because I had time, like you said, independently to stop, was stop doing is more important in that process than anything else. What is I'm going to stop doing? There has at least to be a couple of things, 2 to 3 things I'm going to stop doing. And then sometimes you stop doing them, you're going to start them again. Bad habits. Stop not going to the gym is a very bad habit. So get back on that. Get back doing that, because actually that's one of the things you do unconsciously. Yeah. You put yourself behind. Yeah. The process, and you find out actually what I need to stop doing is to commit to other people's things all the time. And stop to commit to what fuels my energy. Yeah. What is your alone time? Where do I get energy? Yeah. And how can I stop something? Yeah. And that's really hard, because that means you have to say no to some other people. Yeah. If you really have to stop something that's meaningful. Yeah. And if you then tell people, I've just taken on too much and I need to prioritize on the 20% to give it 80% in my work and life. And therefore we need to find a different way to manage this. I would like to put input into it, but I can't give it 100%. Somebody else needs to take this task. And you get very surprised how people act on that. They actually think you're in control of the situation because you reviewed it and you have put down your reasons why you can't do it in that time, or it's just too much. It's just too unrealistic. So I think it's about stop doing it. I don't know if you've seen that as well. It's really about the stopping that's more important than the what do I do next. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Is the moment of is what triggered than everything else. It's just what I stopped doing for doing, and the things that you mentioned a lot. I hear you mentioning as well about other people. Now, really, what do you want to stop doing to really look into what is that for you? And again, look inwards and what is going to be benefit for me at this moment in time. It doesn't need to be forever. Because that we know it's we all into transition, evolution, so it doesn't have to be whatever. But what I'm gonna stop doing now, so I can have the time to whatever you will work. It can be 5 minutes meditation. It can be walking, grounding in the park, and it's hard. I understand it's hard, but it gets into like the level of self-awareness and how intentional you are with. The time that's because there is another thing that's now I mentioned time. You might ask, or I got asked, what's the real cost of not doing it? No, because sometimes it's okay, what's the cost of doing, but what's the real cost of not doing it? And for me, the real cost of not looking after ourselves, whatever it can be through mental coach, or whatever it can be through an activity that you do outside, or whatever it can be through anything else, but to look after yourself, the cost of not doing it, for me, it's nothing to do with money, but is the other unique measure, which is time. So really the cost of not doing not investing on yourself, on your growth, on your self-leadership, on how you can better know yourself, managing yourself. The real cost is time.
What is the one thing a leader that is running a hospitality business can do differently tomorrow morning before they get back into action when they listen to this? What is the one of the most impactful thing you will give them?
Has to be set your intention for the day. How do you want to show up? How would you want to, what is going to be your priorities, and how you are going to navigate pressure? I think that is one thing that you can start putting your heads before you start the shift. Take a couple of minutes. Well, the neurosciences are there. They say the power of visualization, and how you can hire your wire your system, your mind, by visualizing how you want to show up. So how you set your intentions, and again, this is what that's what I've done it 2 minutes before we connected. So it's taking the time for me to stay 2 minutes with myself. If you want to close your eyes, or you can do with your eyes open, but really set that intentions and see it yourself acting, feel it, visualize yourself actually doing with that intention, performing with that intention. And a couple of minutes, it doesn't take less. And I know you asked me for one, but I think that is another important thing. Stop saying I have to, and start saying I get to. Look at what is the benefits, or what is the positive things that you're gonna get to. It can be as simple as like, I have to cook dinner.
No, I get to.
I
Feed my
get
family.
to, yeah, and have the right nutrition for me to operate, to stay healthy. So you see how it changed perceptive. It's like, be mindful of your perception and biases. Because there is another thing.
It has definitely reminded me, I have to say, I get to, because after this, I'm gonna get to look at my last year's tax return for my business, and it's absolutely a task I don't like. But actually, I'm so lucky that I can actually I'm still in business. I can actually allowed to get to that and actually maybe learn something. You always learn something when you look at that, because it's not my natural incline to love it, but it's very important part of business. Yeah, cash flow. What is the one question you wished I asked you, Graz, and what would it be, and what would you be answering?
What are you exciting more at the moment? What is the things that excite you more at the moment? And for me, I come from my experiences in working with young adults and adolescents, and what I'm really excited about, it's them coming through, and then going into the world. As I can promise Michael, they have big dreams. They have big dreams, Michael. They speak, and they have a level of self-awareness and ability to stay connected with themselves. And probably we are the next generation that will have more emotional intelligence than the actual generation. Like children, they have more emotional intelligence than the parents, probably at some point. That is another cross generation things to think. Generally speaking, I'm really excited for them coming through and see them thriving, because I think with the right support, with the right guidance, with the right space, with the right trust that we put in them, they're gonna be brilliant. That's what I'm most excited about.
I love that. I love that. The future, yeah? The future, yeah? And the humans. That's gonna create that. Where can people connect with you online if they want to know more, or if they want to ask you more about your learnings between sports over to hospitality leadership? Where's the best place to go?
Well, definitely LinkedIn. You can find me Graziano Cocco on LinkedIn, and also my website, insideup.co.uk, and in there also you have all my contacts. And what's the best way for me is call me, give me a call. drop me a message, give me a call. I really love and value the connection over a phone call. So do you want to talk to me? Let's set a call and let's talk. Other than that, also you got email, graziano@grazianococco.com. And yeah, and that's probably the best, the easiest way. And let's meet for a coffee in London. I mean, we want to talk. It's London or anywhere. Anywhere. Really. I'm happy to fly. I travel lots. Is one of my other passion. And so let's meet and talk. That's the best way.
We'll have to get you to Copenhagen soon. So that's
I've never been, so there's definitely a yes.
You will enjoy that. Thank you so much, Graz, for coming on, and I'm so happy we got this done. I'm sure we will meet soon. I'm sending you power and energy for your journey ahead. I know you're running off now to do coaching, so power and energy.
I'm putting my Crystal Palace stop now, and let's go.
Good. Thank you so much.
Was a pleasure. Really enjoy. Thank you, Michael.